because you might be a little bit hungover on New Year's Day and college football just isn't getting the job done. It's the Rockies Insider with me, Patrick Lyons, getting you up to date on what's been happening in Major League Baseball over the last week since Christmas. If you haven't been checking in, if you've been checked out, there's been a couple transactions, not a ton, not a lot to go over here as I welcome you to 2025. If no one has done that to you or for you just yet, January 1st, new year, new opportunities, the Arizona Diamondbacks, of which have definitely taken advantage of that with the Corbin Burnes signing. But because this is the Rockies Insider, there is a tiny bit of Rockies notes right now. Miguel Castro, you remember him? One of the key pieces to the Troy Tulowitzki trade back in 2015, coming over for the Toronto Blue Jays. He does sign a minor league deal with the Houston Astros, a player that's never been a world beater, but has been incredibly valuable as a big leaguer. He's been in the majors the last 11 seasons, debuted incredibly young with Toronto, was still young with Colorado, eventually ended up getting designated for assignment right at the beginning of 2017, where he would go off and have a lot of success with Baltimore at a time in which, the Rockies maybe would have benefited keeping him around and possibly letting go of a Jordan Lyles at that time, who was really just the club's long reliever back in 2017. Did they just need an extra veteran arm there for that young rotation? Yeah, you can understand that, but eventually Lyles was released in August of 2017. So Castro not able to make anything of his career with Colorado, but a 3.7 wins above replacement during a 2017 to 2021 stretch, positive WAR in each of those 5 seasons, 3.93 ERA. And last 2 years was with Arizona, well paid in that bullpen, had a $5 million option, triggered with 75 appearances with Arizona during that World Series run back in 2023. Last year in 24 was banged up, had some shoulder inflammation, and only pitched 13 2/3 innings, 11 appearances. So was designated for assignment midway through the year. So he's going to get another opportunity with the Houston Astros. And there's a player like him that you want to give an opportunity to, because at this point he is now a veteran, and odds are he's probably going to rebound and he's going to be fine. Just needs to prove it after having a banged up 2024. Happy New Year to John jumping in the chat, a new listener over on the YouTube side of things. If they trade for Helsley or a lights out closer, you're talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks, because the title of today's show on New Year's Day is, can Arizona make a run at the NL West following the signing of Corbin Burnes and solidifying a starting rotation that has to be one of the best in the game, not just one of the best in the National League West, one of the best definitively in the game, has both the superstar power with a Cy Young Award winner in Corbin Burnes after he signs a 6-year, $210 million deal with Arizona last week. Still yet to have that press conference yet. But they've got a Cy Young Award winner in him. Cy Young Award votes the last 5 years, the only active player in baseball with a streak still going of 5 consecutive years receiving Cy Young Award votes. Zac Gallen, also a perennial Cy Young Award favorite. Eduardo Rodríguez has been a fantastic starting pitcher. Same with Merrill Kelly. You saw how good he was for the Diamondbacks in the 2023 postseason run. You still got Jordan Montgomery, who was also a part of that 2023 World Series on the other side with the Texas Rangers. And that doesn't even include Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson. So you've got a 7-man rotation right now at a time in which arms go down in droves. Pitchers get injured, and you need more depth. The Rockies have suffered from that the last couple of years, 2023 in particular, where they were picking up players off the scrap heap to join the starting rotation. Wasn't as bad last year, won't be as bad in 2025. That is a positive for Colorado. But the bottom line is, it does seem to be a new way that general managers and teams are operating right now, where they want to have 6 or more solid starting pitchers. Every team, you can't have enough starting pitching. But names like again, if the Diamondbacks went into the season with Brandon Pfaadt as their number 4 and Ryan Nelson as their number 5, you say, okay, that's a good rotation. Those guys need to stay healthy and they need to contribute, have good years. And the guys at the top of the rotation, as long as they do their job, they're going to be fine. And you'd be happy about that. You would still put the Diamondbacks on the list of contenders in the National League. But those guys are on the outside looking in. They're now 6 and 7 on the Diamondbacks depth chart. And that's what the acquisition of Corbin Burnes does for this team. And John, I'll talk a little more about what else the Diamondbacks need to do in order to make a run at the Dodgers in the NL West, because they certainly now have the rotation to match the Dodgers' 6-man rotation. But Burnes gets a $10 million signing bonus in his deal with Arizona, stays home, has a house in Scottsdale where a majority of his career has been spent in spring training with the Milwaukee Brewers. They do train down in Maryvale. And then last year, obviously just the one season with Baltimore, who do train in the Grapefruit League in Florida. But it gets the $10 million signing bonus, has a no trade clause, and there is $60 million deferred. So ultimately, according to the Players Association, this deal is evaluated as being about $198+ million that the Diamondbacks are going to be paying Burnes. Burnes is going to receive $210, but the deal is probably under $200 million that the Diamondbacks now have to outlay. He's going to get $30 million over the next 2 seasons. That's important because after 2026, he does have an opt-out. He is going to have a decision that he's going to need to make if he wants to opt out of the final 4 years worth $140 million. That's $32.5 million ahead of his age 32 season, or he can stay, and then that no trade clause becomes a some trade clause. He can protect himself against being dealt to 14 different teams. That's a rather large and significant no trade clause. So the acquisition of Burnes gives the Diamondbacks not only depth in their rotation, but gives them some certainty, some assuredness for next season, because Montgomery, Zac Gallen, and Merrill Kelly are all free agents after 2025. Who are they going to bring back from that group? Most certainly not Jordan Montgomery, after the comments made by owner Ken Kendrick about Montgomery being a bad signing. We'll wait and see if GM Mike Hazen makes a trade for one of those starters or trades away one of those starters. Right now, it sounds like, no, they're not interested in doing that. Could that just be posturing? Very well. Nevertheless, they have the assuredness to know that there's certainty on the 2025-2026 roster going forward. So if they do happen to lose all 3 of those guys, Zac Gallen, Scott Boras agent, he wants to go out into free agency. Merrill Kelly, a little bit older, you might be able to bring him back after the season. Maybe you tack on another year and extend him during spring training. But those 3 guys that you don't know if they're going to be back in 2026, and they could be on the trading block as well. There could be a team out there where if the Diamondbacks are a little bit aggressive on the trade front, they could actually steal a move away from the San Diego Padres, who are debating whether or not they want to deal Dylan Cease. And if the Diamondbacks can be a little bit aggressive here and deal from that depth, really Brandon Pfaadt and now Corbin Burnes are probably the only 2 guys that are locks to not get traded going forward. Even then, Brandon Pfaadt has a lot of years of club control, and you could get a lot for him. That does take away some of that certainty going forward in 2026 and beyond, with the 3 free agents possibly departing. Bottom line is 2025, Diamondbacks are really strong in that rotation, top to bottom, 1 through 5, and then 6 and 7. Really, really good. Really, really solid. The lineup has taken a bit of a hit with the loss of Christian Walker. You bring in Josh Naylor. That's probably a 1-for-1 right there. Your lineup doesn't suffer too much. Joc Pederson is now with the Texas Rangers. Randall Grichuk did not return, so that is a veteran bat that they were able to use effectively against left-handed pitching. Overall, though, you have to look at the Diamondbacks as being a contender for the NL West. It's still the Dodgers. We know that the Dodgers are the class of the National League West and the National League. But if things go right, things go well enough for the Diamondbacks, and things don't go as well for the Dodgers, which they didn't go incredibly well during the regular season. Los Angeles had a lot of injuries. Dave Roberts did a wonderful job as manager of navigating the team to an NL West title. It's one of the reasons why they're currently negotiating an extension right now to keep Dave Roberts back, keep him in Dodger blue. But the Diamondbacks, things could go their way, and they very well could challenge for the NL West. They took a step back by missing the postseason this past year, but they were there in 2023 with a very young squad, probably getting to October a year sooner than many would have expected. Probably even those in the Diamondbacks front office. I don't think they saw a World Series run when they headed out to Scottsdale and Salt River Fields in February of 2023, because you never know what's going to happen. But you want to have the right pieces in place to challenge and give you that opportunity. And right now, going into spring training, we can now say next month, it's January. We can now say next month when the Diamondbacks report to camp down in Scottsdale, Arizona, they have to be feeling very good about their chances in challenging the Dodgers for the NL West. And even if that doesn't come to fruition, they've got a deep rotation that can take them deep into October. Remember, there's only 3 teams that are going to win the division. And with there being 3 wild cards, you get not as many teams are getting that first round bye as in the past. So even if they have to play that wild card round, so be it. It's a crapshoot at that point anyway, right? But they've got the depth to withstand. And it's not just depth, it's high caliber depth now with this signing of Corbin Burnes. So it makes a lot of sense that Burnes would want to stay where he lives in Scottsdale. That works out really nice. That hurts the San Francisco Giants, who are rumored to be attached to Corbin Burnes. Apparently, some reports have that the Giants were going to offer Burnes a franchise record deal, so more than the $182 million Willy Adames received in free agency. And the Toronto Blue Jays are losers in this deal, who are also interested in Corbin Burnes. Orioles, not losers. Apparently, they did have a rather substantial offer on the table for Burnes, but bottom line is they want those draft picks. They absolutely want those draft picks. And you can possibly replace someone like a Corbin Burnes. It's not easy, but with that draft pick, it allows you a lot of flexibility. Maybe they even go out, run it back, and say, hey, we're going to go acquire Dylan Cease from the Padres. He'll be our big ace for this season. And then when he becomes a free agent, we'll give him a qualifying offer and run it back all over again. And we're able to fortify our farm system and fortify our trade capital. Like maybe this is one of the new hacks for general managers and for teams, especially smaller market clubs. Let's see if we can get a guy before he's going to be a qualifying offer candidate. Again, teams are aware of that. And teams are saying, well, hey, even if we just let the contract run out, we saw the Rockies do that with Trevor Story. Even if we let that contract run out, we're going to get a compensation pick after the first round. So you already have to beat that offer. But Giants end up losing out. San Diego, we'll see what happens. Look, they are thinking about dealing Dylan Cease, Luis Ariz to shave a little bit of money off of that payroll with Burnes off the market. Cease very well could be worth that much more. Not great optics if you're a Padres fan if you lose a Dylan Cease, but with what AJ Preller has been able to do in the past, look at the Juan Soto trade. That ended up being a win for the Padres in a big way. You maybe feel a little bit better. And possibly you can announce an extension for someone like a Michael King, who's also a free agent after the 2025 campaign. So the Padres and Diamondbacks showing that, look, despite not having a regional sports network, which is something that the Rockies are struggling with right now. It's one of the reasons why they're cutting payroll. At least that's why they say they're cutting payroll. The Diamondbacks and Padres saying, we can find a way to make this work. We can find a way to win ball games and put a championship caliber team, a competitive team on the field. So Diamondbacks and Padres very much should be applauded for that, despite some of the challenges that those franchises have faced. And I'm sort of curious if we're maybe seeing a shift right now in how Scott Boras and his free agents are approaching his representation. Because I know in the past, I think many of the moves that Scott Boras has made has benefited both Boras and the Players Association, right? The more money you can make for a player, the better that is for the players coming up from behind, raising that bar up for the highest salary. That benefits everybody in the union. And I don't want to say there's certain guys out there that might be selfish, but you want to do what's best for your family. And at the end of the day, 200 million versus 205 versus 210, it's video game money at that point anyway. So you might as well set your family up to be in a good spot, to live in a nice city that you do want to live in. And yes, taxes can be a factor in this. That's one of the reasons why Burnes said he preferred to be in Arizona versus somewhere like California or Canada. But I wonder if we're starting to see maybe a little bit of a shift, a minor shift for players putting themselves in comfortable situations, more comfortable situations for themselves, and less so for an agent like Scott Boras. Because, I imagine as being the super agent that Boras is, there's a lot of navigating and saying, hey, what I do this offseason can have implications for next offseason, and so on and so forth. So you might navigate in a certain way for the betterment of your corporation. And as an agent, that might not be as best for your player, but it's going to be best for future players going forward. And maybe that's the trickle-down effect, is that you now have to go play in a place maybe you're less inclined to play at. But hey, the guys that were in front of you that reached free agency, they did that for you to get a certain opportunity. And with some of the failures of last offseason with Boras and his clients, you do have to think maybe there was some reevaluation going on for his clients and for other free agents that are out there. So Boras getting his guys signed really quick. Alex Bregman's still a free agent. Pete Alonso, two of the bigger Scott Boras clients right now. Anthony Santander, he's dangled out there. Reportedly, the Tigers, who have been very active in free agency with moves. The Angels, very active, having some interest in Santander. So we'll see what happens as we continue in the month of January. It's crazy. We made it. We actually made it. Nationals, I talked about them last week about how well their rebuild has gone and how they bought in entirely. And in 2021, they sold off. And very quickly, they are now one of those teams that could possibly jump into the conversation for a wild card contender in 2025. They've made a lot of shrewd moves, a lot of minor moves, but I would argue that those minor moves have been a lot more significant than the minor moves that the Rockies have made in bringing back Jacob Stallings, Kyle Farmer as a utility man, and signing Thairo Estrada. 3 moves that are smaller moves. The acquisitions for the Nationals, a lot more substantial. Josh Bell now coming back to the nation's capital, 1 year, $6 million. And Trevor Williams also returning after a 2.6 WAR season. It was only 13 starts, but was fantastic. 2.03 ERA. He gets 2 years, $14 million. We're still waiting to hear. We probably got another 2 more weeks until Roki Sasaki makes his decision. Again, January 15th opens up a new window in the international bonus pool. So that is where he is going to get paid. He's still meeting with teams. He met with his 6th team over last week. He met with the Dodgers. That being the 6th team, has already met with the Giants, Mets, Rangers, and Cubs. And 20 teams have made a presentation to Sasaki. And according to his agent, Joel Wolf, they want to preserve the integrity of the meeting process. So the details have not been fully laid out there, but the teams have met in Los Angeles. Each meeting is under 2 hours, and the 20 teams have made a presentation for Sasaki, and a lot of them were making these presentations and these plans before Sasaki was even posted. So you can tell who's been really hungry to acquire this guy. Are the Rockies one of those 20 teams? I don't know. I do know the Rockies were one of the 27 teams that did make a presentation to Shohei Ohtani. Did get that confirmed. There were 3 teams that did not. One was Atlanta, who were being punished for an international signing scandal. John Coppolello has a lifetime ban because of that. And then there were 2 other teams that did not make a presentation to Ohtani. The Rockies were not one of those 2 teams. They were in the group of 27 who did make a presentation. So this is something I know a lot of Rockies fans are probably very curious about, whether or not they have made a presentation to Sasaki. We know that they don't have any scouts over in Asia, no boots on the ground. And that way, the last Japanese-born player to suit up in Denver for the Rockies was Kaz Matsui back in 2007. And, you know, one of the things that Wolf and Sasaki are doing with these interviews and with these presentations and these negotiations, not negotiations just yet, I take that back, but in the conversations they're having with teams, is they're giving the teams an assignment. And what it's allowing Sasaki and Wolf to do is see which teams can analyze and communicate information to Sasaki the best. And that's integral for Sasaki because he's coming over to America. He should be fine. There will be an adjustment period, but he's got 6 years until he reaches free agency, and he wants to maximize his free agent dollars in 6 years from now, just like Shohei Ohtani wanted to do that. And teams that can analyze and communicate it with him the best, whether you're a small market or large market team, it doesn't matter. If you can communicate that to him the best, that is going to be a team that he wants to play with, because money is not an issue right now, as every team can virtually pay him a very similar number. So the Rockies with their smaller analytics team definitely are at a disadvantage in these conversations. But again, market size is simply not a factor right now for Roki Sasaki. I told you that Joc Pederson made some interesting comments about the Houston Astros in his press conference, signing with the Texas Rangers, 2 years, $37 million. He said, quote, "I've played with the Astros a couple times in the World Series. They've put together a nice little run, and it's coming to an end, and it's time for us to take over the West." So the Texas Rangers, shots fired there. They want to take over Texas. They want to take over the American League West. And based off of the roster that they currently have, $500 million for the middle infield, and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, Jacob deGrom returning, a lot of really talented players still on that Rangers club from the 2023 World Series win. Could this be the year that they finally usurp the Houston Astros? We will find out. And you're going to find out a lot more if you are subscribed on YouTube. Hit that bell, hit that icon. Do it on the podcast side as well, the Rockies Insider Podcast, and anywhere you do your social media-ing. At Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB, and at Rockies Insider. Thank you all for joining me. Get some rest. Get some electrolytes in your system. Drink a lot of water. Try to recover today. Get an early bedtime. You're not missing out on too much college football today if you do that. So appreciate you joining me, giving me this wonderful momentum. But as I like to say, momentum, man, it's only as good as my next show. So I'll talk to you then.